A memory from school that I never forgot. Hello, friends. You're listening to The School Principal, Part 4, written by Jalal Al-e Ahmad.
On the third day, I was at school first thing in the morning. I hadn't even turned the corner past the wall when the sound of children sniffling and sobbing reached me. I hurried. 5 kids were huddled together on the terrace, and the disciplinarian had a switch in his hand, taking turns hitting their palms. Very systematic and orderly. 2 strikes for each on the palms of both hands, and then starting over. The class lines were the spectators of this competition. The kids were begging, they were crying, but they still held out their hands. They were used to it. 2 of them were big and were putting on a fake sniffle. One of them had such skill in pulling his hand away from under the switch and dodging it that I was amused, and presumably this was what had angered the disciplinarian. But one of them was so small that I doubted the switch would even hit his palm. Hitting such a small hand was impossible, and the switch would surely either hit the tips of his fingers, which, ouch, I know how that stings, or it would hit his wrist, which I nearly yelled out or kicked out and threw the disciplinarian to the other side. His back was to me and he didn't see me, but something flashed in the children's eyes as I entered through the school gate that made me hesitate, and a murmur fell over the lines, which suddenly made me realize that in my position as the school's manager, it would be very difficult to reprimand the disciplinarian, especially in front of all the children. So I swallowed my anger and calmly went up the steps. The disciplinarian had just noticed me, and his greeting was on his lips when I intervened. I begged him to forgive them all this time for my sake. I didn't know what they had done. They had been late, or they hadn't shaved their heads, or had wax in their ears, or didn't have a white collar, or had taken their friend's pencil, or had once again slashed the seats on the neighborhood bus line, or had found something in the alley and hadn't brought it to give to the disciplinarian, or 1,000 other bad things. That is, later the disciplinarian reported what they had done and also said what bad things they usually do. But that boy's hand was so small, and his face had such a resemblance to a kitten, and he was crying so much that I truly almost slapped the disciplinarian twice across the face and shattered his switch over his own head. The kids, still hiccuping, went back into their lines, and then the bell was rung, the lines went to their classes, followed by the teachers, all of whom were present on time. And when the room was empty, I finally noticed that a bundle of switches had fallen under one of the cabinets. I looked at the disciplinarian, who had just collected himself, and I said, all the while he was at it, he could have broken one of their necks. He suddenly lit up.
If you don't keep them in check for one day, they'll walk all over you, sir. You don't know what stubborn mules they've become, sir.
He kept saying sir with every sentence, like the school kids. I felt that if I said one more word on this matter, he might stand up to me. I changed the subject and asked about his mother. A smile spread across his face, and he called for the janitor to bring him some water. And I don't know why, but I suddenly felt like giving him a lecture, like an old man. I told him that in all my years of maktab and school and elementary and high school and other times, I was only punished twice. Once I was bastinadoed in front of the other kids when I was in the 3rd grade of elementary school, and my sin was that I had climbed the minaret of the Moyer Mosque, which overlooked our school and had a great view. And the second time was in the 5th year of high school, when the school principal mistook me for someone else and slapped me twice. And later, when he realized he had the wrong person, he summoned me to his office. And because I was a Sayyid, a descendant of the Prophet, he apologized to me and gave me a book as a prize. I still have it. I remember I talked to him for half an hour, like an old man, and he was young and could be pacified easily. Then I asked him to break the switches, and he broke them. And then I went to my own room.
The next part of this story will be uploaded tomorrow. What you will hear in the next episode: a world full of scraped knees, thirst, and blackened walls in a school that had no water. Looking for entertainment? On this channel, we share Iranian poems, stories, and podcasts in different languages for you. If you are interested in Iranian literature, culture, and tales, this is the best place for you.